Recently, I discovered or I realized that I'm not the person that I thought that I was. So basically, just to get straight to the point, for the longest time, I thought that I was a type 8 on the Enneagram. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the 9 types personalities. My mom is super into it. 之前我们在美乐蒂家庭 podcast, we even did an episode about the Enneagram. Okay, that's how much my family is into that. And so for the longest time, I thought I was like type 8 or maybe type 3 because I feel like those two types can easily get mixed up because those two types are the more obvious leadership types. But basically recently in this last month I've been doing a lot of traveling. We went to Uganda, our first time in Africa, my parents and I. And over this past month of traveling and meeting other people and meeting especially this one lady, our host in Uganda, who is a very obvious type 8. Okay, this is who I thought I was. And then I met her and I was like, wait a minute. I don't think we're the same person. Of course, like even within each type, there are differences, right? Like everybody's just different. But just seeing the way that she makes decisions and she's not really affected by how other people think and their opinions of her, I was like, wait, I actually care a lot about what people think. And it just made me kind of question my personality, question maybe I'm not actually this, boss that I thought that I was, it's like super strong, like I don't care what anybody thinks about me. I actually care a lot, especially in this last month that a lot of things have been up in the air and I've been thinking a lot about my future, and a lot of people have been speaking into my life because they care about me and they've been sharing their opinions and they have been really affecting me. And so when I was sharing these things with my host and she was like, why do you care so much what people think? And I was like, I really do. And it made me think, like, am I even a type 8? Am I really who I think that I am? And I asked ChatGPT. Yeah, I did. I asked ChatGPT to help me evaluate which type personality I am, and gave me some questions. I answered them and it was like, you're a type 4. And that's like, I feel like the opposite of a type 8, like the opposite of who I thought I was is who I actually am, or at least according to ChatGPT, or maybe just in this season of my life, because I don't know, maybe these things do change, I don't know. But basically type 4 are like highly emotional. That's how I've always viewed type 4s. Like, so, okay, to be honest, I've known a couple of type 4s in my life, and these were usually the people that I felt like I didn't get along with very much, or that I didn't really understand, because I was always like, they're so emotional, like I just don't get it. And I used to think that I was not emotional and I was insensitive and I didn't care what people think. And now I'm realizing, like, Melody, you're an artist. Like, who are you kidding? You're highly emotional. You're very sensitive and you really care what people think. And so I think for the longest time, I don't know why. I think maybe it has to do with a lot of different variables, maybe the fact that I'm the older sister, so I always have to have everything put together. Maybe because I care so much about what people think. So I feel like maybe through different scenarios in my life or different cases or models, I thought that what people want me to be is this character that I tried to become, which is less sensitive and less emotional. Maybe because I was a more emotional kid, which is true. Like, my parents actually tell me that I was a colic baby and I was a very grumpy kid. So I was a very emotional kid. And so maybe because I wanted to please people so much, I decided to identify with this other character, which is not emotional, not reactive, and more stoic. Of course, I don't think that I ever passed that off. Like, I don't think anyone who really knows me thinks that I'm a stoic person at all. Maybe in certain situations. But yeah, like, I was telling some of my friends when I came back to Tokyo this time, like, I think I'm a type 4. I think I'm actually a very emotional person, and no one was surprised. Like, no one was surprised. I mean, to be honest, I'm not even that surprised. If I'm a type 4, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. I'm a singer-songwriter. I'm a musician, I'm a composer, of course. I'm emotional. So anyway, I think, like, in this last month, I've been getting to know myself. And as a result, things just make a lot more sense to me now. The fact that I used to think I was type 8, which is, I think, supposed to be like high energy among the 9 types. Type 8 is like, or type 3, I forget, is like one of the ones with the more high energy. And I used to think I was that person. I'm like, oh yeah, like, I definitely am high energy. I will get up in the morning, I'll go run for 2 hours. I used to do that every day, like last year at least. And I'm like, and I have all this like energy to like work on projects and songs and things like that. But type 4 are like known to be low energy, like you expend your energy and then you're drained. And like, I'm like, oh wait, that actually makes so much sense, because now when I see myself kind of in this like low energy phase, I just don't get down on myself about it. Like, I think I used to have these phases where I was very low energy, or, parts of the day or parts of the week or parts of the month where I was just very low energy. I didn't want to do anything, but I would always disassociate from that part of myself. And I just be like, that's not you, Melody. You are a high energy person. You got to get out there, and that's what's going to make you happy. That's what's going to make you fulfilled. And now knowing that actually that association was harmful to my true self, because I was just not truly accepting who I was. And when I was in these phases, like, there was a lot of probably even self-hatred or self-degradation going on, because I would not just be able to accept that this is part of who I am, actually, that I'm not always going to be like that super productive or super high energy person. Like, I also need my me time, and that this me time is actually part of the beauty that God made me to be. And I need to be okay with that. Like, that's the part that I'm learning to have more grace for myself. Yeah. And besides that being a good thing to me, I think it's also been good for my relationship. So basically, I came back to Tokyo just the last couple of weeks to pack up, and that's another story. But basically, I think possibly that my time here in Tokyo as we know it, because I've been here for the last 8 months as a ministry school student, like, I think this season of my life is probably coming to an end, and I'll probably talk more about that. But to be honest, I'm not really sure what the future holds, so that's why I don't really know how much to talk about it. But yeah, since coming back to Tokyo for the last few weeks and just kind of getting ready to leave, I've also been wanting to tie up some loose ends in terms of relationships. So yeah, a lot can happen in 8 months, and there was some drama, and a lot of that drama was kind of left inconclusive when I graduated a month ago. So this time coming back, I was like, you know what, like, if anything, I really want to make sure like I'm good with everyone. And so I had a really amazing reconciliation talk with one of the people in this community, and it was with the help of another amazing person in this community who was like acting as the mediator. Okay. And I was just realizing, like, people just really have very different communication styles. That's one thing that I learned. It's just me being American, probably I'm just very used to things being like yes or no, just tell it to me straight, no hard feelings, but I gotta know the truth. Like, my pursuit of truth is, maybe that's also a bit of like type 4, like I care a lot about the truth. Like, type 4's title is the individualist. And so I think as the individualist, I really crave authenticity, and I really crave the truth, like being truthful to myself and other people being truthful as well. And so for me, like, when I communicate, I just really prefer if you just tell it to me straight. Like, I just have to know the truth, okay? Whether you think it's hurtful or not, like, please don't lie to me. But here in Japan, I think it's a little different, because Japan and maybe even Taiwan and like, or Asian countries, is a little bit more like beat around the bush and try to be modest and try not to, be too confrontational. And in that process, sometimes you tend towards being a little bit dishonest, which I didn't understand. I didn't understand that actually by saying this, they meant this. I just kind of took it as ambiguous, and I didn't understand that this is their way of saying no, or this is their way of saying yes. So anyway, all that aside, that was one thing that I learned from that conversation. Another thing I think that finally led to the true reconciliation was me acknowledging to this person, hey, I'm also just getting to know myself and taking ownership of the fact that I can sometimes be very emotional. And I think for the longest time, I used to justify a lot of the things that I said or did or behaved because I thought I was being very rational and objective. I thought, that's who I am. And I'm also very good at journaling. So I will write down everything that I remember. And I said this, and then you said this, and then this happened, and that happened. And now we're here, and I thought I was seeing everything very rationally. But in fact, even though I may have gotten all the details correct, it was still filtered through this lens of emotion. And a lot of my reaction was emotional. And I confessed that, and I apologized for that. And thank God that I did. I think that was the Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit reminded me, like, yeah, the goal of this conversation is peace. So let's try to figure out how to get there. Maybe there are some things that I can take ownership for, like, let's step back. Let's not play the blame game, and let's take some ownership. And that was what I could take ownership for, was just this revelation that I had recently that I can tend to be emotional, and I want to apologize for that. And when I did that, then this person was then also able to take some ownership and apologize for their stuff, and then we finally did reach a place where we understood, like, yeah, we're just so different, but also we take ownership for the parts, that where we were kind of shitty, where we probably didn't behave in a way that was completely honoring of the other person. And yeah, so I think that was really beautiful. Just the fact that knowing myself, this part of me, this big revelation, I feel like is pretty big to me this past month, could be so helpful in my relationship with myself and in my relationship with other people. Sometimes we really do have these caricatures of ourselves. We're like, I am like this, I am like this. And just realizing like a lot of that can be illusions. Like maybe even me trying to cope with still maybe some childhood trauma, perhaps, like I said, I was a very emotional kid. And so maybe out of that, I thought that in order to be more pleasant, in order for people to like me more, whether that was authority figures or peers, that I had to be less emotional. And so I started to stop identifying with my emotions and like maybe even suppressing them. But of course, who am I fooling, right? Who am I fooling? Like, I think everyone around me could still tell that I was emotional. And like, I am a musician of all things. So it comes out one way or another. And so now I think I'm on a new journey, which is continuing to understand myself better. And what does that look like? I was actually having a conversation with a friend recently, and she's had, background in like coaching and things like that. And I really liked what she said about her coaching goals. And that is to help herself and to help the people that she coaches to be unapologetically themselves. Like really, that's just the goal, is for us to know who we really are, to accept that, and then just to be unapologetic about it, right? Because God really did make everyone so different and so unique. And the fact is, we need everyone's uniqueness. We need everyone's differences to make the world a better place. So stop trying to be anyone else. Just be yourself and just be unapologetically you. And I actually remember writing something like that in my journal the other day. I was like, my goal is really just to be unapologetically myself. I wish I could just come to a place where I just can be myself and just accept all of me, and without trying to lessen me or dilute the essence of me, just be all the glory, all the light that God put inside of us, right? Jesus said, you are the light of the world. So shine, girl. I think about that quote sometimes from that Spelling Bee movie, but I know that it's from another book. But it's like, perhaps our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate, but it's that we are so great. Like I know I'm like paraphrasing it pretty badly.
Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure.
We're actually afraid of greatness, and I think about that quote a lot, because sometimes I'm like, yeah, I feel like I keep trying to like put myself in put a bowl on top of the candle or something like that, just so I don't like freak people out or intimidate other people. Like I sometimes get that feeling that I intimidate other people, and I'm just like, it would be my goal one day if I could just be fully myself. I think about also that conversation that I had with Naiga recently, or not recently, it was like 2 years ago probably. We were talking about relationships and boys and girls, how in this day and age like dating is so flimsical. It's like we just hang out because we enjoy each other's company, but it's not for the purpose of marriage. And I was saying how I was afraid that if I came on too strong, if I had too strong of intentions at the beginning of friendship, even when we're just getting to know each other, when we're probably just deciding if we even want to date with each other, I was worried that if I came on with the intention of marriage, it might scare the other person away, because I feel like a lot of guys right now don't think about relationships that seriously. And I was like, I don't want to scare everyone away. And Benjamin, he was like, scare them all away.
So if you're a girl who wants to get married, then mentioning marriage is going to scare away a guy, scare all of them away.
Okay.
Because that's not a guy you want to waste your time with.
Just scare them all away. If they don't have the same intention as you, and if they're not coming at this being on the same page, and they're not looking for marriage, just scare them away. Yeah. Like, why? Why do you have to attract guys who don't want what you want? Right. And I'm like, yeah, okay. So sometimes, maybe just be that intimidating person if that's who you really are. Just be unapologetically yourself. And so back to the original thing about being highly emotional and highly sensitive. I think that is part of who I am, but it's also not the part that I want to control me. Like, that's not the part that I want to dominate my life, because that's also not the full picture of me. So I think what I'm coming to realize now is that I actually am that strong woman that I always identified with. But that strong woman doesn't have to also be insensitive and uncaring and all those things that I thought strength meant. That's that was the lie that I believed. I thought that to be strong meant that I had to get used to being disliked, right? And so sometimes I would purposely not be strong because I wanted to be liked. And now I'm learning, like, I have to manage the acceptance thing, but I also have to manage this idea of what it means to be strong. Like, I can be strong and I can know what I want. And that might be intimidating for some people, but that doesn't mean that I'm not a caring person. That doesn't mean that I'm not a nice or a pleasant person, which I used to think is what it meant, you know? And the thing is, like, people have told me in my life that I am these things, like that I am nice and that they like to be with me and that I am pleasant. And it's just these lies in my head, you know? And I think probably some of you guys can relate. It's like people will give us like affirmation, but it doesn't reach our hearts because we already have a narrative of who we believe that we are. And it probably these lies or these narratives stem from, you know, maybe 20, 30 years ago when we were kids. And maybe one thing that one person said sticks with us forever. And we have to we have to ask ourselves, like, are we really gonna believe what this one person said when we were only like 5 or 6 or 7 over what all these other people have said throughout our lives about who we are now? Like, I think I'm going to choose to believe these people who are actually more mature than probably where that person was. And maybe where I was at that point, being who I was then, you know, I might not be that person anymore. And so there is that growth that I also have to acknowledge and celebrate, right, in myself. I don't know. I feel like this whole video is a bit of a ramble, and honestly don't know if anyone would be interested in this process that I'm talking about. But I just thought it was really interesting for me because these are just things that I'm thinking about recently. Wanting to know myself more, considering that I am in this season again where things kind of feel like it's up in the air and I'm trying to discover, you know, maybe what's the next season and where God is leading me to. And the thing is, I think maybe some people from the outside looking in are like, Melody, why is your life always like this? Like, why are you always moving from one country to another country? And like, when are you going to settle down or like figure out what you want, you know? And the thing is, like, I am like admittedly very used to being in these seasons where I'm just like, a lot of things are always up in the air and I'm just going with the flow. And I think that's part of, honestly, I think that's part of the way that God made me. I don't have that many things, like two suitcases, and I can like be out of here. All that to say is, like, everyone's just different, right? Everyone's just different. And I am also learning to accept that while other people might not get it, you know, but that should be okay with me. I think the important question for me right now is, who am I? Like I said, I'm still getting to know myself, like even my personality and what I want. What do I want? Like, I think that's quite a big question, and that's actually really hard, as simple as it is. What do you want? We get asked this question a lot at restaurants and things like that, but seriously, what do you want? And I think that is often the question that most people are not able to answer. I think about this book that I just finished reading recently, and it's called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And you know, you might be thinking, why are you, you know, some missionary in Tokyo reading a book about getting rich? I might do an episode on this with my parents about, I used to think that like making money was evil. Like, I don't think I ever verbalized it like this, but I think subconsciously I used to think that like wanting to be rich was like an evil desire. And of course, you know, the love of money is the root of all evil, but money itself is not evil, right? And I think a lot of us can break it down. But yeah, I got this book because actually when I went back to Taiwan, you know, a few weeks ago, I was talking to Benjamin Naige, and he was telling me how, because we were talking about filing our taxes, okay, because we're both American, and we were talking about that and talking about finances, and he was saying how he reads one personal finance book a year. And I was like, wow, good for you. You know, I should probably like start educating myself a little bit too, you know? And so because of what he said, I went to a bookstore like right after that conversation, and I got myself this book and I sent it to him. And then he was like, oh, I heard about this book. You know, it's not really a personal finance book. It's more like a self-help book, but yeah, sure, you can read it. So I did. I read it. I finished it a few days ago, and I actually thought it was really quite helpful. Like, I think there are a lot of principles in it. It's a really old book. So I think a lot of the more recent new age stuff like manifestation or The Secret probably came from the ideas written of in this book. But yeah, a lot of like manifestation stuff, a lot of like, you have to know what you want and then desire it above everything else, and then just like go after it, have a definite purpose, and then make definite plans and things like that. And in general, I think that's a pretty good rule of thumb. It's like, you do need to know what you want, you know? Like, how are you going to get from point A to point B if you don't even know where point B is? And I think that's the problem for a lot of us, including myself, is that I don't know what I want. And a lot of that is, the indecision, but also maybe because we don't know who we are, right? Like I'm still trying to figure out who I am. And I think the moment that we know who we are, a lot of that understanding and acceptance will come with it, a sense of purpose, and then knowing what we want. And you also have to know who you are in order to be unapologetic about that and unapologetic about what you want. Because I think sometimes knowing what we want is just the first step. Then we have to be unapologetic about it, right? Just like the gospel, just like when we in Tokyo as well, like the last 8 months, I was here as a missionary and we're like preaching the gospel on the streets. And you can't really do that if you're shy about the gospel. You can't really do that if you're not sure about what it is and who you are and what God has done for you. You have to know what you're talking about. You kind of have to be unapologetic about it, right? Because otherwise why would you be out there on the streets telling people about God? Because you just know, because you know in the deepest of your hearts what it's done for you and what it will do for them, right? And so that is the similar thing. It's like, do you know who you are? And you have to get to that place where you're just unapologetic about it. And there's no reason to be sorry, because that's just the way that you are. That's the way that God made you. That's the purpose that he's given to you. And then there's no reason to have to please other people, to bend over just to make other people happy, because at the end of the day, it really is just about you and God, right? And I think that's what I'm learning. In this last month, I've talked to so many people, and a lot of these people are very smart people and have a lot of experience, coaches and parents and friends and business people, lawyers, everyone giving me their 2 cents, right? And I asked for it, to be honest. I asked for it. And I think a lot of the time I was asking for it because I was seeking validation, not because just I was looking for information. Because the question is, do I really need more information? Yes and no. Like, information is always out there. And of course you can gather it and it can be helpful. But if you're only looking for validation, that really has to come from yourself and the Lord. Like, any decision that you make has to be 99% you and God. That's what my life coach told me recently. And that's the other thing. I got myself a life coach. See, that's how serious I am about this next season, about trying to figure out who I am and what's next. And so all of that was a lot of rambling. I feel like I haven't talked this much in a long time. I mean, the thing is, like, when I do my Melody Chatting podcast with my parents, it's in Chinese, right? And I just don't speak Chinese that well. Like, I don't think I can say everything that I want to say in Chinese all the time. And of course I speak a little slower. So maybe that's better for my audience, right? Maybe you guys are like, oh my gosh, Malay, I can't understand you because you're like rambling on and on. But if you guys enjoyed this video, if you guys enjoyed this stream of consciousness, why don't you leave a comment, like, subscribe if you're not subscribed. And I know that this channel is a little bit all over the place. Recently I did a poll asking if I should create a new channel just for English content only. But actually it seemed like a lot of people wanted me just to keep everything on one channel. So that's what we're going to continue to do. So I don't know. Maybe it's the indecision thing. I just don't really know who my target audience is. I'm also a music channel, So I talk, I do podcasts, I do music, I write songs. They're kind of all over the place. These are all things that I'm thinking about in this season where things are up in the air and I'm trying to figure out what the next thing is going to look like. So be patient with me as I try to figure this out. But thank you so much for being with me along the journey. And I also want to get better at sharing the process, sharing the journey, because I think that is the interesting part. I want to get better at possibly filming myself and then doing the creative things that I enjoy doing, creating and writing music. I want to spend more time doing those things and the things that I don't want to spend as much time on, such as editing and like administrative things, whatever. Maybe I can learn to do less of that and like pass it on to people who are better at those things. So if you know anyone who are good at these things, maybe you can let me know. Yeah, just leave a comment or something. Yeah. Thank you guys. All right. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.